The morning of September 16th weighed heavy over the upscale hills of Lomas de Chapultepec. Firework echoes from the Independence Day celebration still lingered in the air, but inside the rose-quarried estate known as Cantera Rosa, silence had settled like dust over everything. Esteban Aguilar collapsed into the leather armchair in his office, his trembling hands covering a face twisted in helpless grief. For 20 years, this house had symbolized power and legacy. Now, it felt like a tomb. His daughter Simena had been missing for exactly 72 hours, and every passing minute stabbed deeper into his chest like a splinter laced with poison. Esteban was not a man easily shaken. At 58, he had the bearing of someone used to being listened to the first time. Towering at over 6 feet with a square jaw passed down from his father, a Puebla-born mason who died building towers for men richer than he'd ever be, Esteban had clawed his way up from nothing to build a real estate empire. His hazel eyes, now red from sleeplessness, had overseen the rise of luxury condos from Polanco to Santa Fe. He never wore anything less than tailored Hermes suits and white gold cufflinks, the ones he bought the day he landed his first multi-million-dollar wow deal. But those calloused, once-proud hands now trembled as he gripped the phone, desperate for news. "Commander Reyes," he barked into the receiver when the police station finally picked up. "What the hell are you people doing to find my daughter? It's been 3 goddamn days and all you've given me is red tape and excuses while my little girl could be. His voice broke like glass dropped on concrete. On the other end, Commander Reyes, a battle-worn officer with 3 decades patrolling Mexico City's roughest corners, exhaled slowly. "Don Esteban, like I told you, we've got units combing the entire area. We've questioned every domestic worker in the neighborhood, reviewed the security footage." "Don't give me that same old speech," Esteban exploded, slamming his fist against the mahogany desk so hard the bronze lamp trembled. "My daughter didn't just vanish into thin air. Someone took her, and we both know it's those lowlifes who hang around the periferico. Trash from the outskirts sneaking into our neighborhoods to steal whatever they can." On the other side of the tall volcanic stone wall that divided 2 of the wealthiest properties on Calle Montaña, Tomas Herrera calmly watered his rose bushes. Though his movements were slow and precise, his ears missed nothing. A retired history teacher with the patience of a man who'd spent 4 decades teaching moody teenagers, Tomas was known for his quiet dignity. His lean face, framed by a crown of thick white hair slicked back with pomade, bore the lines of someone who had smiled often but mourned in silence. Dressed in a crisply ironed white guayabera and cream-colored cotton slacks, he wore the same handcrafted leather huaraches he'd bought in Michoacán 30 years ago. "Bruno," he said gently to the 4-year-old German shepherd who was furiously scratching at the wrought iron fence separating the estates. Bruno, with his glossy black and tan coat shimmering in the morning sun, had the most perceptive eyes Tomas had ever seen. The dog had shown up 2 years ago, just a shivering pup abandoned outside the Deportivo Chapultepec, and since then had become Tomas's loyal shadow and the neighborhood's early warning system. Today, however, Bruno was more agitated than ever, his golden eyes locked on a specific point: the old greenhouse at the back of the Aguilar property, half concealed by blooming bougainvilleas and towering eucalyptus trees planted to shield the estate from prying eyes. "What is it, boy? What do you see?" Tomas whispered, stepping closer to the fence. The greenhouse was a relic, wrought iron and stained glass, built in the 80s by the home's previous owner to house exotic orchids. Esteban had never touched it. In fact, Tomas remembered him scoffing at a neighborhood gathering, muttering that flowers are for bored women and funerals. At that exact moment, the front gate of the Aguilar mansion creaked open with the sharp whine of rusted metal. Out stepped Marta Guadalupe Sanchez, clutching a wicker basket of laundry, heading toward the service patio. Though petite, Marta moved with the kind of presence that demanded respect. At 60, her frame was marked by the grace of hard-earned dignity. Her dark, sun-weathered face lined from decades of emotion, framed eyes deep and still like wells. Her gray hair was pinned in a tight bun, and she wore her usual uniform, a navy blue dress, a stiff white apron, and soft-soled black shoes that made no sound on the tiles. Marta had arrived at the Aguilar home 21 years ago, back when Simena was a 6-month-old colicky baby. Fleeing heartbreak in a Guanajuato village, she had sought a new start in the capital. The late Mrs. Aguilar hired her more out of desperation than trust, but Marta had proven to be the kind of woman money couldn't buy. Wise, nurturing, fiercely loyal. Spotting Tomas by the fence, Marta approached with steps light yet hurried. Her eyes were swollen from crying, but she held herself with the steel composure of someone who'd buried dreams before. "Good morning, Don Tomas," she said hoarsely, nodding her head. "Please forgive the noise from the señor. He's falling apart." "No apology needed, Doña Marta," Tomas replied softly. "But you haven't slept either, have you?" Her eyes welled up, but she refused to let the tears fall. "That girl is like my own blood, Don Tomas. I saw her take her first steps, taught her how to tie her shoes, held her through her first heartbreak. I can't accept that she's gone like this." Suddenly, Bruno's barking turned sharp and focused, directed straight at the greenhouse. Tomas furrowed his brow, squinting at the fogged-up glass structure. "Doña Marta, has the señor had the ground searched thoroughly? I mean every corner. Including that old greenhouse?" Marta's expression darkened. "I begged him to send the gardeners everywhere, but he's obsessed with this idea that someone grabbed her off the street. Says it happened during the vows. Everyone, distracted by the music and the lights." She shook her head in frustration. That night had been the social event of the year. Esteban had dropped over 2 million pesos on Simena's quinceañera. They'd hired a full mariachi band from Garibaldi, a Cuban salsa group, an international DJ, and held a gala dinner for 300 guests. Simena looked like something out of a fairy tale. Her gown a deep Mexican pink with hand-stitched beadwork from Oaxaca that had taken 6 months to finish. But Don Tomas remembered something that didn't sit right. The birthday girl wasn't smiling. During the father-daughter waltz, her eyes weren't on the dance floor or the crowd. They were distant, unfocused, as if trapped somewhere far away. "When did you all realize she was missing?" Don Tomas asked, as Bruno continued pacing, anxiously by the garden gate. "It must have been around 11:30, Marta said, dabbing her eyes with her apron. "I was clearing plates off the terrace when Don Esteban started asking around for her. No one had seen her for over an hour. We checked every room, every corner of the garden, asked every guest. Nothing. It was like she vanished into thin air." At that moment, Don Esteban's voice boomed from inside the mansion. "Marta, get over here now!" She jumped as if struck by lightning. "Ay, Dios mío, now what?" Don Tomas reached out gently. "If you know anything, even the smallest thing that could help." "Of course, Don Tomas. You know you might have my trust." As Marta hurried back toward the house, Don Tomas remained near the greenhouse, a tightening sensation building in his stomach. Bruno had stopped barking, but he was pacing in tight, worried circles, tail low, eyes glued to the gate. And Don Tomas had seen that look before. That was dog anxiety. Later that evening, with the sun dipping behind the volcanoes that watched over the Valley of Mexico like sleeping giants, Don Tomas set out for his usual walk. It was a routine he'd stuck to since retiring, strolling the cobblestone streets, nodding to neighbors, admiring garden changes. But today he had a destination in mind. As he passed the Aguilar mansion, he noticed the curtains were drawn, and 5 police cruisers were lined up along the drive. Officers moved in and out with boxes marked evidence, while Don Esteban argued furiously with a man in a gray suit who looked like a detective. "You're wasting time," Esteban roared, hands flailing. "She's not here. They took her. Those bastards robbing people off the Periferico. You should be chasing them, not playing games in my house." The detective, a bald man in his 40s with a thick mustache, kept his cool. "Senor Aguilar, we have to search the property thoroughly. Nothing can be ruled out." "Protocol, my ass," Esteban barked. "While you're fumbling around in closets, my daughter's out there, maybe even—" He couldn't finish. Don Tomas picked up his pace but then caught something that made him stop. One young officer muttered to another, "Hey, did you check out that greenhouse in the back? It's dusty, but there's fresh prints on the floor." "Yeah, I looked. Empty. Still, you're right. Someone's been in there recently, even though the boss says he never sets foot inside." Don Tomas's pulse quickened. Bruno had sensed something. He always did. By the 4th morning, a sharp breeze swept through the valley, rustling the eucalyptus leaves like whispers from beyond. Don Tomas woke with the unsettling certainty that something had shifted during the night. Bruno stood by the bedroom window, ears rigid, gaze locked on the Aguilar property. A low, steady whimper escaped his throat, one Don Tomas had never heard from him before. "What is it, boy?" "What did you hear?" he whispered, shrugging on the navy robe his sister had gifted him their last Christmas together. Before cancer. Took her. Pulling aside the linen curtain, he looked out. The Aguilar mansion looked strangely surreal in the golden morning light. The garden lights were still on. Esteban hadn't slept. Movement near the greenhouse caught his eye. 3 men in coveralls walked toward the glass building carrying ladders and crowbars. He recognized Juvenal, the landscaper who worked for most families in the community. A stout man from Xochimilco with shovel-like hands and absolute loyalty to his employers. The younger 2 were likely his nephews. They helped out during the busy seasons. Then the house phone rang, shrill like a siren. Don Tomas answered the old black rotary his mother once owned, kept now only for nostalgia. "Don Tomas, good morning. I'm so sorry to call so early. It's Marta. Did you maybe hear anything strange last night? My boss swears he heard something break around midnight." Her voice was strung tight like a violin about to snap. In the background, Don Esteban could be heard barking more orders while metal clanged against glass. "Didn't hear anything odd, Doña Marta, but I see they're finally breaking into the greenhouse. Took them long enough." Silence stretched on the other end before she sighed. "Ay, Don Tomas. Last night he had a nightmare. He said Simena was trapped. Somewhere cold and dark, begging for help. He woke up screaming her name, swearing he had to check every inch of the property. Called Juvenal at 5 a.m. But didn't the police already search that place?" "Yes, but you know how he gets. Says the cops are clueless. He doesn't trust them to find anything." Through the glass, Don Tomas saw Juvenal barking orders of his own as the men worked to break open the greenhouse door. The rusted lock gave them trouble. They had to use a metal bar to pry it loose. The screech of metal bending traveled all the way to where he stood like a ghost moaning. "Doña Marta, do you know why that place was always locked up? Why no one ever goes inside?" Another pause. When she finally spoke, her voice was hushed, almost conspiratorial. "The truth is, Don Esteban's afraid of that place. When we bought the house, the old owner, Don Sebastian Romero, told him he used to keep his orchid collection in there. But there was something else. Something he never told me fully. All I know is, after that talk, Don Esteban ordered it sealed, shut." Don Tomas furrowed his brow. He remembered Don Sebastian vaguely, a textile tycoon who lived there through the 80s and 90s. The man had been peculiar, kept to himself after his young wife died in a terrible car accident. Rumor had it after her death he became obsessed with orchids, his wife's favorite flower. Did he leave anything behind? Don Tomas asked. Documents? Blueprints? Marta hesitated. Just a few papers, some drawings of the property. Nothing that made much sense? Yes, sir. They're locked up in the office safe, said the maid, eyes downcast. But you know how protective he is with his paperwork. Even I've never seen those documents. Right then, a scream cut through the afternoon heat like a blade. Don Tomas froze, blood draining from his face. It was Juvenal's voice, but twisted with such shock it bordered on terror. Bruno, the German shepherd, exploded into a barking frenzy, sprinting straight toward the garden gate. What was that? Marta's voice crackled through the phone line. I don't know, but something's happened. His voice turned urgent. Hang up and go check. Don Tomas set the receiver down and hurried outside. From behind the iron bars of his garden gate, he caught sight of Juvenal stumbling out of the greenhouse, his face bleached pale like newspaper. The foreman was shouting something unintelligible, waving his arms and racing toward the mansion. Moments later, Don Esteban appeared, barefoot in pajamas, barreling across the garden like a man heading straight for his judgment day. The strong, imposing figure that once filled boardrooms now looked fragile, even broken. Curiosity clawed at Don Tomas. He grabbed the aluminum ladder from his shed and propped it against the volcanic stone wall separating the properties. Despite his 73 years, he climbed with surprising agility, pulling himself up to peek over the edge. The sight below stole the breath from his lungs. The greenhouse was like a forgotten relic. Iron racks that once held potted plants now sagged under cobwebs and rust. The red brick floor was carpeted with dry leaves and shattered glass from long broken windows. But the chaos wasn't what had rattled Juvenal. At the center of the greenhouse, hidden beneath a rusted metal sheet and a scatter of empty pots, was a trapdoor, a hidden cellar. The door now gaped open, revealing a wooden staircase plunging into darkness. Don Esteban stood over the opening, hands trembling, eyes vacant. Juvenal spoke to him rapidly, gesturing as if trying to explain the unexplainable, while the other, two workers hovered back, uneasy. Boss, I swear to you, Juvenal stammered. We had no idea this was here. We were just moving the pots to clean. We heard a hollow sound, knocked on it, and it opened right up. Don Esteban stepped to the edge and shouted into the void, Simena, Simena, answer me. Only his echo came back, eerie and distant. Marta came running down the gravel path, two police officers trailing behind her, the same ones stationed on the property overnight. She halted at the scene, gasped, and whispered a prayer into her trembling hands. My lord, what is this? One of the officers, an older sergeant with a salt and pepper mustache, approached the trapdoor and shined his flashlight down. The beam illuminated the stairs, wooden, descending about 3 meters, into what looked like a tunnel or underground passage. Senor Aguilar, the sergeant said, this might be an old shelter, could be dangerous. We need to bring in specialists before anyone goes down. No, Don Esteban snapped. My daughter might be in there. I'm not waiting for anyone. He moved toward the stairs, but the sergeant grabbed his arm. Sir, please, we don't know if it's safe, could be unstable or filled with gas. Let go of me, Don Esteban yanked free with sudden fury. She's my daughter, my responsibility. He stepped onto the wooden staircase, which groaned beneath his weight. Muttering under his breath, the sergeant followed, flashlight beam bouncing as they descended. From his perch on the wall, Don Tomas watched, heart pounding. Bruno had gone silent now, whimpering softly like he sensed something unspeakable was about to surface. Voices echoed from the tunnel below, muffled, anxious. The crunch of boots on damp soil, gasps of disbelief, and the ghostly resonance of their words filled the air. Then, after what felt like a lifetime, Don Esteban's voice rose from the darkness, thick with emotion, hard to define. "Sergeant, come look at this. You're not going to believe what we found." Marta crept toward the edge of the trapdoor, her face contorted with dread. "What is it? Did you find her? Is my baby down there?" Don Esteban's reply came echoing up, jagged and cold. "She's not here, but Marta, someone's been living down here." The silence that followed was suffocating. "There's food, blankets, clothes, and a journal." "It's her handwriting, Marta. It's Simena's." A tremor passed through Don Tomas. He could hear his own heartbeat. Marta swayed, clutching her chest. Juvenal lunged to keep her from collapsing. 20 minutes later, Don Esteban and the sergeant re-emerged from the tunnel. In their hands, a cardboard box overflowing with relics that looked cursed by time. A hardcover diary with a tiny broken lock. Clothes Marta immediately recognized as Simena's. Water bottles, canned food, and something that made Don Esteban stagger. A family photograph. One that had gone missing from Simena's desk weeks before. "She planned this," he whispered, voice shredded by grief, clutching the diary like it burned his hands. "My own daughter. She planned to disappear." In the Grand Aguilar library, once filled with the hum of business deals and thick with the scent of leather-bound ledgers, now hung a silence unlike any other. This was the most important meeting of Don Esteban's. Life Commander Reyes had arrived with 2 specialized detectives. Marta stood by the window, twisting her hands until her knuckles turned white. Don Esteban sat stiffly, the diary resting in his lap like a live grenade. Its pink leather cover, gifted by him on her 14th birthday, now seemed sinister. The tiny golden lock had been forced open. The pages inside waited to betray them all. "Before we read this," Commander Reyes said, voice measured but firm, "you need to understand, if what's written here confirms she staged this, the entire investigation changes." "That's impossible." Don Esteban slammed the armrest. "She's just a kid. She's 15. How could she plan something like this?" Marta turned from the window. Her eyes shimmered with tears she refused to shed. "Sir, with all due respect, Simena hasn't been a little girl for a while now. She's changed." "Changed?" Detective Morales leaned in. She was sharp, focused, with a strict ponytail and notebook ready. "What kind of changes did you notice?" Marta hesitated, then met the detective's gaze. "Behavioral ones, and some that went much deeper." She glanced nervously at Don Esteban before speaking. "She used to wake up real early, earlier than anyone else in the house. Said she needed quiet time to study. But I'd hear her whispering on the phone real soft. And when I'd ask who she was talking to, she'd always say it was some girlfriends from school. But I never recognized the names." Detective Andrea leaned in. "What names did she mention?" "Sometimes she talked about someone named Miguel," Marta said hesitantly. "But when the girls I did know, Paula, Fernanda, the usual ones, came over, they'd ask why Simena wasn't answering their messages." Don Esteban's face drained of color like he'd seen a ghost. "Why didn't you tell me any of this before?" "Senor, with all due respect, you're always busy with the business. I figured it was just teenage stuff. I didn't want to stir up trouble that might not be anything." Commander Reyes opened the journal like a surgeon preparing for delicate work. The first page was written in Simena's neat rounded script, inked in blue with little doodles along the edges. "July 15, 2015, he read aloud. "Today I met someone who truly gets me. Not like Dad, who just wants me to be his perfect little doll. Not like the girls at school who only care about makeup and boys. This person listens when I talk about my fears, my dreams, what I actually want in life. Don Esteban leaned forward like each word hit him in the gut. Who? Who's she talking about? Who understands her like that? The commander kept reading. I won't write their name here in case someone finds this journal, but they're the first person who's ever made me feel like I'm not crazy for wanting to study journalism instead of business. Dad would lose it if he knew I didn't want to run his companies. Journalism? Esteban exploded, jumping from his chair like a spring. She never said anything about journalism. She agreed she'd study business to take over the firm. Marta stepped in, timid but brave. With all respect, Patron, did you ever ask what she wanted to study? Or did you just tell her? The silence that followed was suffocating, like the air itself had thickened. Don Esteban collapsed back into his seat, face buried in his hands. Detective Morales gently took over the journal. July 25th, 2025, she read. Today they took me to see a place that felt magical, like a secret world where I could just be. They told me stories about faraway lands and people who chased their dreams even when their families didn't believe in them. For once, I don't feel like I'm trapped in a golden cage. A secret place? Murmured the commander. Could she be talking about that tunnel we found? The detective flipped forward, scanning for more. August 5th. I told them about the fight with Dad over my quince dress. He wanted traditional pink, I wanted something bold. Of course, he got his way. My new friend said something I can't stop thinking about. Simena, one day you'll have to choose the life he picked for you or the one you choose for yourself. Don Esteban snapped his head up like he'd been slapped. Friend? She calls this person a friend? Are we sure? This wasn't an older man grooming her? The detective jumped to a later entry. August 20th. Today they showed me something incredible. Turns out our house hides secrets, things even Dad doesn't know. The man who lived here before built a hidden shelter during the earthquakes back in the 80s. It connects to... No, I better not write more. But it's wild to think I've spent my whole life above this mystery. Marta moved closer to Don Esteban. Patron, did you ever hear about that tunnel when you bought the house from Don Sebastian? Don Esteban shook his head slowly. But there was something in his eyes that didn't match his words. Don Sebastian was a private man, he said after a pause. He told me the place had quirks I'd discover over time. Commander Reyes stood and wandered the room, scanning book spines like they might hold answers. Senor Aguilar, he said firmly, I need full transparency. Is there anything you haven't told us about the house? Any blueprints, maps, documents? Anything that could explain this tunnel? Don Esteban's gaze drifted up to a portrait above the marble fireplace. His late wife, Maria Elena Aguilar, stared back from the canvas with her gentle smile and sad, knowing eyes. She had passed when Simena was just 8, 6 cruel months after the cancer diagnosis. Since then, Don Esteban had been a single father and the head of a crumbling empire. There's a safe, he finally whispered. It has all the purchase documents, even original construction plans, but I've never gone through them. After Maria Elena passed, I just wanted to move on. Forget the past. Detective Morales gently closed the diary. We'll need to see those papers, and we're going to keep reading the journal. Something here doesn't add up. And the more we know, the better our chances of understanding what really happened to Simena. Right then, the landline rang, a sharp, outdated chime that cut through the room like a knife. Marta moved to pick it up, but Don Esteban lifted his hand. Let the machine get it. I don't want to talk to anyone. His recorded voice filled the room, "We're not available right now. Please leave a message." The tone beeped. Then came a girl's voice, young, faint, and altered, as if filtered through cloth. "Dad, if you're hearing this, I'm okay. Don't try to find me. This was my choice. There are things I need to learn about our family, about Mom, about myself. When I'm ready, I'll come back. But please, don't look for me." Click. Every person in the room froze. Don Esteban lunged for the phone, punching in the code to replay the message. They all listened again. Every breath, every background hum. "That's Simena's voice," whispered Marta, tears slipping down her cheeks. "It's distorted, but it's her," the detective said. "And there's noise in the back. Traffic, maybe a plaza or open market." "Commander." Reyes was already on the radio, calling in a trace. Meanwhile, Don Esteban sat glued to the phone, playing the message again. And again, like it was some chant that might bring her home. "Things I need to learn about our family. About Mom," he repeated, barely able to speak. "What does she mean? What does she think I've hidden from her?" Marta and Morales shared a look. Seasoned women. Women who'd seen too many truths buried by pride. "Senor Aguilar," said Morales firmly, "I think it's time we opened that safe and saw everything. We still need to finish reading the journal. I've got this feeling that the secrets," her daughter hinted at, "go way deeper than just some hidden tunnel." Don Esteban gave a slow nod, like a man walking toward his own execution. He stepped toward the portrait of his late wife and with shaking hands moved it aside to reveal a wall safe tucked behind it. "There are things," he muttered while turning the dial, "that no father ever wants his children to find out. Things you bury deep hoping it'll protect the people you love." With a faint metallic click, the safe popped open. Inside were stacks of papers, old photographs, and a bundle of letters tied together with a pale blue ribbon, written in a woman's graceful hand. Marta stepped closer, and her breath caught the second she saw the handwriting. "Patron," she whispered, voice unsteady. "Those are Doña Maria Elena's letters. But I thought you stored everything of hers in the attic after she passed." Don Esteban picked up the bundle of letters as if handling relics from a church altar. "These are different," he said, his voice breaking. "She wrote these to me before she died. Letters filled with truths that will change everything Simena thought she knew about her family." The silence in the library thickened into something solid, almost sacred. Outside, the constant buzz of Mexico City, the horns, the sirens, life moving on, felt distant, unreal. At exactly 4 p.m., the old grandfather clock struck just as dawn. Esteban opened the first letter, his fingers trembling like dry leaves in a storm. Under the amber light spilling through the stained glass windows, Maria Elena's elegant script seemed to come alive. Commander Reyes and Detective Morales leaned, embracing for revelations that could turn the entire investigation upside down. "This one's dated March 15, 2009, Don Esteban murmured, his voice a broken whisper. 2 months before she passed. Marta instinctively moved closer, as if her presence alone could give her employer the strength to confront ghosts long buried. Her eyes shimmered with loyalty and dread. She knew better than anyone what kind of secrets had been kept sealed in that house for more than a decade. "My dearest Esteban," Don Esteban read aloud, barely managing the words. "By the time you read this, I'll be gone. The doctors say I've only got weeks left, and there are things I have to tell you, things I've kept locked inside to protect our family, but now they feel like stones crushing my dying soul." Detective Morales discreetly started recording. Her pen moved across her notepad like a blade. Every word could be the key to Simena's disappearance. "First, my love," the letter continued, You must know. Simena is not your biological daughter. I know this will break your heart as it broke mine to keep it from you. Her real father is Sebastian Romero, the man who sold us this house. A silence fell so heavy it swallowed the air. You could hear the faint hum of electricity in the lamps. Don Esteban froze, staring at the page as if the letters had lost all meaning. No, he growled suddenly, crumpling the page to his chest. That's not true. Simena is my daughter. I raised her, I rocked her to sleep. She has my eyes, my walk. Marta placed a trembling hand on his shoulder. Don Esteban, please. Keep reading. Doña Maria Elena wouldn't have written that unless it meant something very serious. Commander Reyes leaned forward in his chair. Senor Aguilar, this could explain a lot. Your daughter's obsession with the greenhouse, her knowledge of the tunnels, even why she's been pulling away from you. It's possible someone told her the truth. Don Esteban smoothed out the paper with unsteady fingers and continued reading, his voice raw. Sebastian and I were involved long before I met you. When we broke things off, he moved to the U.S. for work. I assumed he was gone for good. Then I found out I was pregnant. But by then I had already met you and fallen hopelessly in love. Why? Don Esteban choked out. Why didn't you tell me back then? I didn't, the letter said, because I knew you'd love me anyway. And Sebastian was gone from my life. You were the one who stayed, who held my hand through every appointment, who didn't sleep the first night. Simena cried. You are her father in every way that truly matters. Detective Morales cut in with a sharp question. When did Sebastian come back to Mexico, and why did he choose to sell you this house? Don Esteban looked up, eyes red but dry. He returned in 2005. Told me the house held too many painful memories of his late wife. He gave us a great deal, almost a giveaway. I figured he just needed money fast. But now it's clear there was more to it, Morales noted. He wanted to be close to his daughter. Marta wiped a tear from her cheek with the corner of her apron. That's why Senor Sebastian spent so much time in the garden when he still lived here. Simena was just a toddler, but I remember. He always found a reason to chat with me whenever I took her outside. Don Esteban's voice grew thinner as he read on. The second truth hurts even more. Sebastian never really left. When he came back to Mexico, he found me. He begged me to tell him the truth about Simena. At first I refused, but he had already figured it out. The timing, the resemblance. Resemblance? Commander Reyes asked. What does Sebastian Romero look like? Any photos of him? Don Esteban walked over to a worn filing cabinet and pulled out a folder of real estate paperwork. Inside, clipped to a copy of the property deed, was Sebastian's old IFE card. The photo showed a man in his 40s with wavy chestnut hair, deep green eyes, and a sad smile that could have been lifted straight from Simena's face. My God, Morales whispered. The resemblance is undeniable. How did no one notice this before? Because I didn't want to, Don Esteban confessed bitterly. When you love someone that much, you block out what hurts. Marta studied the photo closely. Now I understand why Simena always asked why she didn't have straight hair like you, or brown eyes like us. She felt different, because she was. Don Esteban returned to the letter, clutching it like a lifeline. Sebastian threatened to tell her the truth unless I allowed him to have some sort of relationship with her. He didn't want to take her or break up our family. He just wanted to know her. I agreed, but under strict conditions. He could only visit once in a while. He was never to reveal who he really was. And if he ever tried to pull her away from us, he would lose all contact forever. When did those visits begin? Morales asked. For the last 3 years of my life, the letter closed. Sebastian came to our home every 2 weeks. He always had an excuse. to check on the garden, bring flowers from the greenhouse, fix a broken sprinkler. Simena knew him as just the gardener. That's all he ever was to her, and all he ever talked about were orchids and soil and sun. Commander Reyes shot to his feet. So he's been in touch with Simena for years? His voice was tight, his instincts suddenly razor-sharp. Then it's very likely that as she got older, he told her the truth. Maybe they even planned this whole disappearance together. Don Esteban's face crumpled in disbelief. "But why now?" he asked, voice trembling. "Why wait until she's 15? Marta shifted, wringing her hands nervously. "Sir, there's something I need to say." Her voice cracked. These past few months, Simena kept asking me questions about her mother, about the pregnancy, her birth, what she was like as a baby. Esteban blinked. "And what did you tell her?" "I told her what I knew to be true. But now, I'm starting to think maybe my answers didn't match up with what someone else told her." Detective Morales suddenly stood, eyes flashing with urgency. "We need to find Sebastian Romero now. Do you have any idea where he is? A number, a job, an address?" Don Esteban shook his head, stunned. "After he sold us the house, he moved somewhere south of the city. I think he mentioned Coyoacan, or maybe San Angel. But I haven't heard from him in years." At that moment, the phone rang again. This time, Don Esteban lunged for it like a drowning man grasping at air. "Simena? Dad?" Her voice was clear now. No static, no distortion. Just a hollow sadness that pierced through Esteban's heart like a blade. "I need you to stop looking for me." "Simena, wait. I know the truth now. About Mom. About Sebastian. About everything. I'm not in danger. But I need time to understand who I really am. Simena, please come home. We can talk. I don't care about any of that. I love you. I know, Dad, I love you too. But you lived a lie for 15 years. Now I need to live with the truth. Where are you? Are you with him? Are you with Sebastian?" Silence. The sound of city traffic in the background, a quiet breath. "I'm where I need to be, to find the answers. But Dad, are there more secrets? About how Mom really died? About the house? About your deals?" Then, click. The line went dead. Don Esteban stood there, gripping the receiver, like it was the last thing tethering him to her. Commander Reyes had already begun coordinating a trace on the call. Detective Morales was dispatching a citywide search for Sebastian Romero. "Mr. Aguilar," she said, her voice calm but firm. "There's more in that letter, isn't there?" She turned to the envelope, trembling in Esteban's hands. "Your daughter mentioned secrets about her mother's death, about your business. We're only beginning to understand what's been buried here." Don Esteban sat again, his hands, once steady enough to sign billion-peso contracts without blinking, now quivered as he unfolded the letter from Maria Elena. Night had fallen over Lomas de Chapultepec. A blanket of black, pierced by scattered golden lights. Under the pale glow of a desk lamp, Esteban began to read. "My love," the letter began. The ink faded, her voice alive between the lines. "There's something I never told you. Something that will explain why Sebastian has always had power over us, and why I could never stand up to him." Commander Reyes leaned in, his instincts on edge. Decades of digging through corruption had taught him to recognize the scent of buried rot. "What do you mean by power over you?" Morales asked. Don Esteban swallowed hard, the words catching like thorns in his throat. "There were some problems with the permits for that first housing development in Satellite. Dad always says that when something's shady, Marta muttered from the corner, her loyalty visibly crumbling under the weight of the truth. Esteban gave her a faint nod, grateful, guilty, then continued reading. Esteban, when you bought that land in '95, you knew they found something during the early excavations, didn't you? Bones, ruins, a pre-Hispanic temple. If you'd reported it, the whole project would have been delayed for years, millions lost. The room fell into a suffocating silence. Don Esteban closed his eyes as if he could erase the words. You destroyed archaeological evidence? Reyes asked, voice now low and dangerous. Esteban kept reading. Sebastian was the project engineer. He found the site, and he agreed to stay quiet, for a price. Detective Morales stopped writing. She stared at him now, face unreadable. Mr. Aguilar, are you admitting you bribed a government official to cover up the destruction of cultural heritage? Don Esteban shot up from the chair like a cornered animal. He walked toward the window, toward the garden where the lights flickered through the trees like ghosts. You don't get it, he muttered. The country was in crisis, people needed homes, jobs. If that development failed, you'd lose millions. Morales finished coldly. We were just kids, he shouted, slamming his fist against the glass. I was 28. I had just married Maria Elena. We were starting our lives. And Sebastian, he needed money to get to the U.S. We thought no one would ever find out. Marta approached, her eyes full of pity. You're not a bad man, Don Esteban. You just made a mistake. A long time ago. He looked at her, hollowed, haunted. A mistake that's hunted me for 30 years, he whispered, picking up the letter once more. My love, the letter said. Sebastian never asked for more money, not directly, but he made it clear he remembered. He never forgot what we did. When he came back from the States and showed up at our door, it wasn't just to see Simena. It was to remind us that our past would never stay buried. The moment Commander Reyes rose from his chair, he started pacing the library like a man solving a riddle under fire. So what we're really dealing with here is emotional blackmail, he muttered, gears in his head grinding. Sebastian Romero used the archaeological secret to worm his way into your lives, gained access to your daughter, and then used that bond to keep you all in line. Don Esteban remained seated, reading with leaden eyes. Sebastian didn't just come around to see Simena. He kept an eye on our accounts, our investments, every new project. Said he was just making sure we were being financially responsible, he added, voice flat. But looking back, I think he was hunting for anything he could use to nail us. Detective Morales leaned in, scalpel sharp as ever. And did he find anything? Don Esteban slumped back into the armchair like a man finally crushed under the weight of years. Little things. The kind of shortcuts every developer takes to speed up permits, tips to minor officials, paperwork that somehow gets expedited, approvals that skip a few steps. How much are we talking? Reyes pressed. In all these years, maybe 5, 6 million pesos total. Nothing compared to what big developers move, but enough to make our lives hell if anyone starts digging. Marta stepped over to the table and pointed to a section of the letter they hadn't read. Patron, look at this. Don Esteban followed her finger and read aloud, voice trembling. The greenhouse Sebastian built at his original home wasn't just for orchids. It was where he hid files, photos, and proof of every shady deal he'd ever been part of. When he sold us the property, he confessed he built an exact copy of the hideout beneath the new greenhouse. Called it his insurance policy, just in case he ever needed protection. The weight of those words hit the room like an explosion. Reyes grabbed his radio immediately, issuing orders to search the greenhouse and the underground tunnel. That means, Morales said slowly, piecing the puzzle together in her mind, Sebastian Romero holds more than just evidence of the archaeological crime. He could have documentation of every crooked transaction you've made for decades. And now he has Simena, whispered Don Esteban, voice cracking. My daughter's with a man who can destroy everything I've built with a single phone call. Right then, the landline rang again. No one moved. The shrill tone pierced the silence like a funeral bell. On the fourth ring, Don Esteban lifted the receiver with a trembling hand. Hello? The voice was male, mature, tinged with a northern accent that sent chills down his spine. Don Esteban, it's Sebastian Romero. I think it's time we had a man-to-man talk. A hush fell so complete you could hear hearts pounding. Where's my daughter? Don Esteban demanded, his voice barely holding back rage and fear. Simena's here. But not like you think. She came on her own after I told her the truth about her birth. She's hurting, confused, but she's safe. What do you want from me? Romero's laugh was cold, bitter, like something dead coming back to life. After 3 decades, Esteban, all I want is justice. For my daughter, for Maria Elena, and for the lives we ruined. I'd never hurt Simena. She's my blood. But you've spent 15 years lying to her. You built your empire on crime, taught her that money fixes everything. Reyes waved frantically for him to keep talking as they traced the call. What do you want me to do? Tomorrow night, 8 o'clock, come alone to the Coyoacan market. Find Doña Carmen's flower stand near the fountain. Simena will be waiting. Then we put it all out on the table. Truth, consequences, all of it. And if I don't show, then the files I've kept for 30 years go straight to the Attorney General and the media. By morning, Simena will know exactly who her adoptive father really is. The line went dead. Don Esteban stood frozen, receiver in hand, as the walls around him felt like they might crumble. Reyes finished coordinating the trace, then turned toward him, face grave. The call came from somewhere in the south of the Car City, too wide an area to pinpoint. But we've got a meeting, murmured Don Esteban. And I've got a terrible feeling. Nothing I do from here will put my life back the way it was. Marta stepped forward, laying a firm but kind hand on his shoulder. Maybe it's time, Patron, time to stop running. Time to face it. For Simena, and for yourself. Outside, the city lights flickered like fallen stars, and the night ahead felt endless for Don Esteban Aguilar. The morning of the reckoning arrived draped in heavy clouds, as if Mexico City itself could sense the storm brewing. Don Esteban hadn't slept. He'd wandered the mansion all night like a ghost lost in a sea of memories. Frame by frame, he'd studied photos of Simena growing up. Her smile at 5, her first bicycle, her quinceañera dress, hoping to find a hint that might have warned him of this day. At 7 a.m., Marta found him in the garden, seated in front of the greenhouse that now stood like a tomb for the secrets rotting beneath his legacy. He was still wearing yesterday's clothes, coffee-stained and wrinkled, eyes hollow with a man's broken certainty. Don Esteban, Marta said softly, handing him a steaming mug with the gentle care of someone who knows deep pain. You need something in your stomach. It's going to be a long day. I'm not hungry, Marta. I don't know if I'll ever be hungry again. You will, she replied, voice steady. And Simena's coming back home. You'll see. He looked up at her. This woman who had mothered his daughter more than he had fathered her. Do you think I'm a bad man, Marta? That I deserve to lose her? Marta sank into one of the wrought iron chairs, something she never would have done in front of him before, but today the rules no longer mattered. You're not a bad man, Patron. You're just a man who messed up when he was young and didn't know how to fix it later. But your love for Simena? That's real. Anyone can feel it. See it. I smothered her. Turned her into a golden prisoner because I couldn't bear the thought of losing her. And in the end, I lost her anyway. That's when Commander Reyes arrived, flanked by Detective Morales and a full forensic team that had spent the night combing through every inch of the secret tunnel. The look on Reyes's face said it all. He wasn't just here to deliver news. He was here to change everything. "Senor Aguilar," he said without pleasantries, "we need to show you what we uncovered last night, and afterward we need to talk about your personal safety ahead of tonight's meeting." They led him to the greenhouse, now lit up with high-intensity floodlights that made the place look like a surgical suite. The tunnel had been fully mapped and exposed, and what they found was far more complex than anyone expected. "The tunnel doesn't just link your estate to Romero's former house," said Morales, pointing to a detailed blueprint spread across a portable table. "There are several branches reaching out to the main street, 3 exits minimum. It's practically a fallout shelter." Reyes stepped in, voice graver now. "But what matters most is what we found in the central chamber." They descended deeper toward the heart of the labyrinth, until they entered a low-ceilinged room no bigger than a small office. Metal shelves lined the walls, stacked with folders, storage boxes, old photographs, and enough audio equipment to run a newsroom. At the center stood a battered desk, covered in hard drives and an open laptop. "Sebastian Romero has been tracking shady real estate activity for over 2 decades, Morales explained. "Not just yours, Mr. Aguilar. Dozens of developers, public officials, and construction tycoons." Don Esteban stepped toward the shelves, grabbed a random folder, and flipped it open. His own face stared back at him. Caught in private meetings, contracts he thought were long buried, conversations he was sure had been confidential. His blood ran cold. "This man's a damn spy," he whispered, stunned. "He's been watching me for years." Reyes gestured to another wall of documents. "Not just you," he said grimly. "This is enough to bring down half the city government. Romero isn't just blackmailing people. He's built a kingdom out of secrets." Marta had stayed by the tunnel entrance, refusing to go any further. Something about that place set her nerves on fire. "Why?" Esteban asked, dropping the folder, like it burned. "Why would anyone do this?" Detective Morales checked her notes. "We dug into Romero's background all night. His wife Carmen died in '94, hit by a company truck. Same firm that bribed traffic inspectors to skip safety checks. No charges were ever filed. The records vanished." Reyes picked up the thread. "Sebastian believed corruption killed her. He made it his life's mission to expose the rot." Don Esteban leaned against the cold tunnel wall, every breath heavier than the last. The puzzle pieces were falling into place and cutting him with every click. "So when he helped with the archaeological problem, it wasn't about money. It was to gather dirt on me." Morales nodded. "Exactly. And once he found out you were Simena's biological father, he had leverage, decades of it. That's when Esteban's phone buzzed, the special ringtone he'd set just for her." His hand trembled as he answered. "Papa." Her voice sounded older, heavier, filled with a sadness he didn't recognize. "Simena, baby, are you okay? Has he hurt you?" "No, Papa. Sebastian hasn't hurt me. But what he told me—" She paused, swallowing pain. "Hurts more than anything else ever could. Come home. We'll talk. We'll figure it out." "Is it true?" She asked, her voice trembling with rage. "Did you destroy ancient ruins for your first development?" The silence stretched so long she had to ask if he was still there. "Yes," he whispered finally, broken. "I was desperate. And the bribes? The payoffs to city officials?" "Simena, that's adult stuff. Complicated." Don't treat me like a child. Her voice cracked like thunder. I'm 15, not 5. I deserve to know if my father's a criminal. He closed his eyes, feeling everything he'd built collapse under its own weight. Yes, mi amor. I've done things I regret. Every single day. And Mama? She asked, voice suddenly hollow. Did the stress of hiding all your lies make her sick? Her words landed like a hammer to the chest. He had never considered it, but now that she'd said it, it made a terrible kind of sense. I don't know, baby. I honestly don't know. Tonight at the market, I want you to come ready to tell the truth. All of it. Because I can't live in a house built on lies anymore. Will you come home with me afterward? He asked, barely breathing. A long pause, then the sound of her shaky breath. That depends on what you say tonight, Papa, and whether you're man enough to face the mess you made. The line went dead. Don Esteban stood frozen, feeling like he'd just spoken to a stranger who wore his daughter's voice. The little girl he'd protected, raised, adored. She was gone. In her place stood a young woman demanding truths he might not survive admitting. Commander Reyes stepped forward, placing a steadying hand on his shoulder. Sir, we'll have undercover agents scattered throughout the market. Romero may lash out if he feels cornered. No, Esteban said, surprising everyone with the steel in his voice. I'm going alone just like he asked, no tricks, no backup, no lies. My daughter deserves to see who I really am, a man who failed but who's ready to face the music. That's dangerous, Morales warned, but Esteban was already climbing toward the light. I've already lost my wife. I've lost my daughter's trust. And somewhere along the way I lost my own self-respect. What else is there left to take? Marta followed him up the stairs with the quiet devotion of someone who'd stood by his side for 2 decades. Don Esteban, she said softly, whatever happens tonight, this will always be your home, and Simena loves you, even if she's lost right now. Gracias, Marta, he said without looking back. You're the only person left who still believes in me. I've never lied to you, sir, and I won't start now. The midday sun hung high over Mexico City, but for Don Esteban, it might as well have been midnight, the darkest of his life. The bells of San Juan Bautista tolled, 8 times, slicing through the warm Coyoacan air like blades, as if counting down to a reckoning decades in the making. Esteban moved through the cobbled streets of the old town with the heavy, deliberate steps of a man haunted by 30 years of buried truths. He had parked his armored Mercedes near Viveros, choosing to face this meeting on foot. The encounter ahead wasn't one for chauffeurs or tinted windows. It demanded humility. The Coyoacan market throbbed with its usual weekend energy. Families gathered with bunches of marigolds. Lovers passed esquires back and forth, and foreigners clicked. Photos of every mural and mosaic. The air was thick with a blend of sizzling carnitas and sweet florals, uniquely Mexican, unmistakably alive. But to Don Esteban, every smell burned stronger, every sound stabbed deeper. Desperation had sharpened his senses like blades. It didn't take him long to find Doña Carmen's flower stall. She was an older woman, maybe in her 70s, with silver hair twisted into a bun and hands worn from years of tilling soil. Her coal-black eyes studied him. Part mercy, part judgment. "You're Don Esteban?" she asked, still tying a bouquet of white roses. "Yes, señora. I'm looking for my daughter." She didn't hesitate, just nodded toward the cafe tables under the corridor's archways. "They're waiting for you. But listen closely, Don. Esteban, whatever lies between you, that girl loves you. She hasn't slept a full night since she got here." His heart stopped. "She's been here a whole week?" "Yes, senor. Arrived early last Monday morning, eyes swollen shut from crying." Don Sebastian brought her and begged me to treat her like my own blood. Esteban's legs turned to rubber. Still, he walked toward the table she pointed out. Under the amber light of the colonial lamps, he spotted two figures facing each other. Simena, in jeans and a plain white blouse, her ponytail giving her the air of someone older than her 15 years, and the man he hadn't seen in 2 decades, Sebastian Romero. Though time had turned the once youthful engineer's hair completely gray and carved deep lines into his face, Esteban recognized him immediately. Simena noticed him too, and rose slowly. The hug she gave wasn't the kind they used to share. It was full of love but lined with frost. "Hi, Dad," she whispered into his chest. "Thank you for meeting me, sweetie. I've missed you every day since you left. I missed you too, but I needed this. I had to figure out who I really am." Sebastian stood and offered his hand. Taller than Esteban remembered, he now carried the calm, immovable strength of someone who'd waited years to speak. His green eyes, Jimena's green eyes, locked with Esteban's, brimming with both recognition and confrontation. "It's been a long time, Esteban." Their handshake was firm, but beneath it lay years of silence, bitterness, and secrets. "Why now?" Esteban asked. "Why tell her now?" She deserved to know, and because it was the only way to stop the web of lies that was choking her. The 3 of them sat at the small iron table. Around them the market pulsed as usual. A mariachi played La Llorona in the distance, a cruel coincidence none of them missed. "Dad," Simena said, her voice soft but steady. "This week, I learned things about our family that changed everything I thought I knew. But before we get into that, I need you to answer something, truthfully. Anything, mija. Did you know Sebastian was my biological father?" The world around Esteban seemed to freeze. The one question he had prayed would never come. "No," he said, his voice gravel. "Not until I read your mom's letter yesterday. For 15 years I truly believed you were my daughter in every sense." Simena nodded. Her shoulders dropped slightly, like she'd been holding her breath for too long. "That's what I thought. Because even though Sebastian told me the truth about my birth, he also made sure I understood. You loved me like your own from the very start." "You are my own," Esteban whispered, clasping her hands. "Blood of my blood, heart of my heart. Nothing changes that." Sebastian cleared his throat. "Esteban, I didn't tell Simena the truth to rip her away from you. I told her because she had a right to know, and because she needed to understand why I've spent my life exposing the rot that eats away at this country." "So this is about revenge?" Esteban snapped. "It's about justice." Sebastian's voice cracked. "My wife Carmen died because a drunk driver, employed by a corrupt company, was behind the wheel of a truck in no condition to be on the road. That company paid off the transit inspectors, so their trucks never got checked. Carmen died because someone decided profit mattered more than life." His eyes welled with tears he refused to let fall. "When I helped you cover up the archaeological find in '95, it wasn't for your money. I wanted to see corruption from the inside, to understand how decent men like you make choices that hurt everyone around them." Simena turned to Esteban. "Dad, he showed me photos of the temple you destroyed. It was beautiful. Over 500 years old." Esteban closed his eyes. The guilt he'd buried clawed back up. "I know, baby, and I've regretted that decision every single day since. But why did you do it? Was it really worth it?" "I thought it was. I was 28, just married your mom. We dreamed of building something together. That project meant our future. When we stumbled onto the ruins, I knew reporting them would mean years of delay, maybe the end of my company. You never thought there might be another way?" She asked gently. "In that moment, no. I was blinded, by fear, by ambition. I believed it was the only option. Sebastian leaned forward. And that's the real sickness, Esteban. Not evil. Just everyday people caught in their own justifications, choosing wrong because it's faster, easier. That's why I fight, to show the cost of those choices. I've tracked more than just your missteps, Esteban. I've uncovered the shady dealings of dozens of developers just like you. And here's what I've found. Most of them weren't monsters. They were regular people who panicked, made a bad choice, and then kept digging deeper just to cover it up. Esteban rubbed the edge of his glass, jaw tight. So what do you want from me? He asked. I want you to stop the cycle, I said. Use your influence, your money, your name to undo the damage. Simena sat up straighter. Sebastian's told me about a project, she said, her voice clear. He wants to start a foundation, one that investigates corruption in construction, but also helps companies operate with integrity. And what would my role be? Esteban asked. You'd be the example, I said. The successful mogul who steps forward, owns his mistakes, and dedicates the rest of his career to transparency. Can you imagine what it would mean if Esteban Aguilar, the man everyone sees as untouchable, admitted his failures and became the face of doing business right? Esteban didn't respond. For several long moments he just stared, at his daughter's hopeful face and at me, stone-faced but unflinching. Outside, the mariachi finished La Llorona and shifted into Cielito Lindo. It was a lullaby Maria Elena used to sing to Simena as a child. And if I say yes, Esteban finally murmured, how do I know you won't use all that evidence to crush me anyway? The only promise I can give you, I said slowly, is this. If you work with me to build something real, the evidence stays sealed. But if you keep playing the same old game, it all goes public. Simena reached for his hands. Dad, this is your chance, she whispered, to take something broken and make it beautiful, to show me that even the worst mistakes can be made right, that we always have a choice to do what's right. Esteban looked down into her green eyes, not his eyes, not even his blood, but the eyes of the girl he had raised and loved like his own for 15 years. And for the first time in years, something in him shifted. Would you come back home with me? He asked, his voice cracking. If you work with Sebastian, if you mean it this time, if you swear there'll be no more lies between us, and then yes, Simena said softly, I'll come home. Esteban turned to me and held out his hand, not for a cold business handshake, but something different, something honest. I'll do it, he said, voice steady. But on one condition, Simena's part of all of it. I want her to see how something good is built from the ground up. I want her to believe in second chances. For the first time in a long while, I smiled without bitterness. Carmen would have been proud to see this, I said, as the three of us stood and embraced under the twinkling lights of Coyoacan Market. Esteban let out a breath he'd been holding for decades. 30 years of silence and cover-ups began to peel away, replaced with something unfamiliar but welcome. Hope. The ride back to Lomas de Chapultepec was quiet. Esteban and Simena rode in the Mercedes. I followed behind in my old white 2010 Suru, a clear reminder of the different paths we'd taken all these years. As they cruised down Insurgente Sur, the silence between father and daughter wasn't tense anymore. It was healing. Papa, Simena said at last, watching the lights of the city blur past. There's something I need to tell you. During my time with Sebastian, I didn't just learn where I came from. I realized why I never felt like I fully belonged in our home. Esteban gripped the wheel with hands steadier than they'd been all night. Whatever had broken inside him had started to mend, like he could finally breathe. I always felt like I had to be flawless, she continued, her voice trembling slightly. Like love was something I had to earn. One wrong move, and you'd send me back to wherever it was I really belonged. Her words hit Esteban like a slap. At a red light, he turned to her. Her green eyes, Sebastian's eyes, held the raw truth of a child who'd spent years feeling like a guest in her own family. Mija, I didn't know you felt that way, he whispered. Everything I did, it was to protect you, to give you the best. I know, Papa, but you protected me so much I forgot what it felt like to be free. I became this perfect little trophy behind glass, not a girl who could mess up and still be loved. The light turned green. Esteban drove on, lost in thought. That's why you staged your disappearance, he said, to prove you could make your own choices. Partly, Simena nodded. But Sebastian also showed me that I had a right to know my story. He told me about my mother, how they met, her dreams before cancer stole them. Your mother, Maria Elena, she was remarkable, Esteban said softly. I loved her, and I know she loved me. That's what Sebastian told me too. He said before she died she made him promise to watch over me and to tell me the truth when I was ready. They reached the gated entrance of the estate. The security guard waved them through, oblivious to the transformation that had taken place since that morning. The mansion shimmered ahead, every window glowing with warm golden light. Marta's doing. She'd kept the house lit, hopeful, ready for Simena's return. As they pulled into the stone driveway of Cantera Rosa, the front door swung open and Marta ran toward them, arms wide, tears already falling. My niña, oh God, my beautiful girl. Marta sobbed, wrapping Simena in a hug meant to heal every second of worry. I missed you so much. I cried every night. I prayed so hard for you to come back safe. I missed you too, Marta, Simena whispered, holding her tight. I stepped out of the suru and watched them from the edge of the drive. The mansion that had once been mine now overflowed with something I never managed to grow there: love. Esteban came to me. Sebastian, he said, this is your home too. I want you to know that. After everything we've lived, everything we've uncovered, it's time we became a real family. I looked toward the old greenhouse where I'd hidden my files and my grief. I don't know if I could live here, I said honestly. Too many ghosts, too many memories. Simena stepped between us, linking her hands with ours. Then let's make new memories, she said. Ones that aren't born from secrets or guilt, but from truth and love. Inside, Marta had set the table. The smell of pozole rojo filled the air, rich, warm, and comforting. A new chapter had begun, and for the first time in a long, long time, we were all home. She'd spent the afternoon preparing homemade horchata and a vanilla flan, Simena's favorite dessert since she was a little girl. That night, gathered in the rarely used formal dining room, the three most important men in Simena's life began weaving together the fragile threads of a new beginning. Don Esteban spoke about turning his construction company into a model of transparency and civic responsibility. Sebastian laid out his vision for building a foundation to fight corruption from within the very systems that allowed it to thrive. I've been turning names over in my head, Sebastian said as he refilled Simena's glass with horchata. What would you think of this? Fundación Carmen y María Elena, in honor of the two women who taught us the value of telling the truth. Don Esteban's eyes misted. Maria Elena would have been proud. She used to say that past mistakes only become permanent if we refuse to grow from them. Sebastian nodded. And Carmen? Carmen always believed vengeance poisons the soul, but justice can heal it. Simena, who'd been listening quietly, stood and lifted her glass. "I want to make a toast," she said, her voice steady. "To Carmen and Maria Elena, for the mistakes that shaped us, the truths that freed us, and the family we're building from the shattered pieces of what came before." The three clinked glasses just as Marta stepped out from the kitchen with the tray of flan. She stopped short. At the sight before her, her eyes, wise from 2 decades of watching this family evolve, filled with a deep, almost sacred emotion. "Marta?" Don Esteban asked. "What is it?" She smiled through tears. It's been so long since this house felt filled with real love, not the kind bought with things or enforced with control, but the kind that grows when people finally see each other clearly." After dinner, the four made their way out to the garden, where the motion lights cast a warm glow through the eucalyptus trees and blooming bougainvillea. At the far end, the greenhouse stood lit like a glass ghost, but it no longer felt threatening. Now it was simply part of their story, no longer hidden in shame. "There's something else I need to say," Sebastian announced, his eyes fixed on the glass structure. "During the years I spent documenting corruption, I didn't just find dirt on men like Esteban. I uncovered whole networks. Public officials, politicians, powerful businessmen. It goes deeper than any of us imagined." Don Esteban's brow tightened. "How deep?" "Deep enough that our foundation will need real security. Some of these people will stop at nothing to stay in the dark." Simena walked toward the greenhouse and gently placed her hand on the foggy glass. "Does this mean we're in danger?" "It means," Sebastian said solemnly, "we have to be smart with how we handle what we know. But it also means we have a chance to make a real difference. We could actually change how things are done in this country." Just then, the house phone rang inside. Marta went to answer it. When she returned, her face had lost all its color. "Don Esteban, it's Commander Reyes. He says he needs to speak with you. It's urgent. Word's gotten out about tonight's meeting, and the station's been getting anonymous threats ever since." The moment shattered like a plate dropped on tile. Don Esteban and Sebastian exchanged a glance, one that spoke of too many years, dancing around dangerous truths. "What kind of threats?" Esteban asked. "The commander wouldn't say over the phone, but they're sending extra patrols to the neighborhood tonight." Simena stepped closer to her adoptive father. "Papa, does this mean we made a mistake, deciding to work together?" "Don." Esteban pulled her into a tight embrace, his heart heavy with the fear of what might come and the resolve to do what was right. "No, mija. It means we're doing something so important. There are people out there scared enough to try and stop us. That tells me we're on the right path." Sebastian stepped beside them. "Esteban, Simena, I need you both to know something. If this gets too dangerous, I can vanish with everything. Disappear. You can go back to your lives. You don't have to pay the price for my obsession." "No," Simena said with a firmness that startled them both. "We're a real family now, and real families face storms together." As they walked back toward the house under the stars of Mexico City, none of them knew that, at that very moment, in an office high above Santa Fe, a group of extremely powerful men was drafting the plan to erase the threat that had just been born from the alliance of Esteban Aguilar and Sebastian Romero. The war had just begun. Monday morning arrived with a phone call that froze Don Esteban's blood. It was 4:30 a.m., and he'd just woken from a nightmare where faceless men chased Simena through endless alleys. When he picked up, Commander Reyes's voice was clipped and grim. "Don Esteban, get dressed and come to the public ministry offices immediately. Bring Sebastian Romero. Something serious happened." "What is it? Are we in danger?" "There was a fire last night in a warehouse in Azcapotzalco. Initial reports say it's where Sebastian stored his backup files. Everything's gone. Burned. Esteban sat down, the weight of the news tilting the room around him. An accident? No. Investigators found accelerant traces. It was intentional. An hour later, Esteban, Sebastian, and Simena, who had refused to be left behind, sat in the stark gray offices of the Federal District's Public Ministry. Commander Reyes waited with Detective Morales and a severe-looking man they didn't recognize. "I'm Federal Prosecutor Roberto Mendoza." He introduced himself curtly. "Let's get to the point. This is extremely serious. The threats we received last night." He paused. Weren't vague. They were highly specific. Deadly specific. Sebastian leaned forward in the rigid blue chair. "What kind of threats are we talking about?" "Threats to the lives of all three of you. Threats against Don Esteban's employees. And against any public official who cooperates with your efforts." Simena turned pale but held her composure. "Do you know who made the threats?" she asked. Detective Morales checked her notebook before answering. The calls had come in from burner phones, but the language, the insider references, they weren't random. Whoever was behind them had an unsettling level of knowledge. They knew exactly where they'd met the night before, the time they got back home, even what they'd eaten for dinner. A chill crept up Don Esteban's spine. "Someone's watching us, that's what it looks like," the prosecutor Mendoza said grimly as he opened a thick folder brimming with documents and glossy photographs. "What I'm about to show you doesn't leave this room." He laid the evidence out on the table, a damning trail of images and reports. What they revealed wasn't just a couple shady deals. It was a full-blown conspiracy. Mendoza looked them in the eye. "We've been digging into a corruption network that stretches from city officials to real estate tycoons. We're talking an organized outfit, one that erases inconvenient truths." The photos painted a disturbing picture. Upscale buildings in posh neighborhoods, but also covert meetings in luxury restaurants, shady handoffs in parking garages, and job orders marked archive cleansing. "They call themselves Los Arquitectos," Mendoza continued, voice low and steady. "They don't build structures, they build impunity. They're specialists in covering tracks, silencing witnesses, and, when necessary, eliminating anyone who might pose a threat." Sebastian leaned over the photos, studying them like they were pieces of a puzzle only he could solve. "I recognize some of these faces. Government contacts I've had to deal with in past cases. What's this got to do with us?" Don Esteban's jaw tensed as he asked, though he already feared the answer. "That archive you're hiding, it doesn't just contain evidence of your past mistakes. It exposes the deeper rot, hundreds of millions funneled through illegal channels. To them, you're not just a loose end. You're an existential threat." Simena stood up, pacing the cramped office like a caged tiger. "So what's the plan? Pretend nothing happened and go back to normal?" "That's one route," Mendoza admitted. "We could relocate you, new IDs, federal protection, let the storm blow over." "And the other?" Sebastian asked. "You work with us. Use your archive. Use Sebastian's memory. Help us lay a trap that finally brings the architects into the light." Don Esteban glanced at Simena, who had stopped pacing and now stared at him with that unwavering intensity that once belonged to Maria Elena. "What do you think, mija?" "Last night we made a promise," she said quietly. "We swore to turn our mistakes into something good. If we run now, that promise means nothing." Sebastian nodded slowly. "She's right. I've spent 2 decades documenting corruption from the sidelines. Maybe it's time I stepped onto the field." Commander Reyes, silent until now, cleared his throat. "Before you agree to anything, you need to understand. These aren't street thugs. These are trained professionals with deep pockets and powerful friends. Once you're in, there's no walking away. Simena's voice was barely above a whisper. How many people have they killed? Reyes looked her dead in the eye. At least a dozen in the last 5 years. Journalists, activists, civil servants who said no. Car crashes, house fires, sudden heart attacks in healthy young men. The silence that followed was suffocating. Don Esteban reached out and took Simena's hands that trembled ever so slightly. If we say yes, he asked, what guarantees do we have you can keep us safe? None, Mendoza answered, flatly. But I'll tell you this. If we don't act now, this cancer will keep spreading. It'll swallow the city whole, and countless families will pay the price. Just then, the office phone rang, a shrill, jarring sound that broke the heavy quiet. Detective Morales picked up, murmured a few words, then turned back to them, pale as death. It's Coyoacán PD, she said. They found Doña Carmen, the flower vendor, dead in her home. Looks like a robbery gone bad. Simena's hands flew to her mouth, stifling a scream. Just the night before, Carmen had embraced her like a second mother. Now she was gone. Silenced. This isn't a choice anymore, Sebastian muttered, his voice cracking. They killed her, for helping us. If we stay quiet, there'll be more Carmens. More innocent blood. Don Esteban stood, a quiet force of resolve now firm in his posture. Mendoza, tell us exactly what you need from us. Act like nothing's wrong, the prosecutor said. Go home. Esteban, go to work as usual. Sebastian, carry on as if everything's fine. Meanwhile, we'll monitor every call, every encounter, waiting for the architects to make their move. And Simena? Don Esteban asked. How do we keep her safe? She'll be our ace, Mendoza replied, though his eyes held no joy. She goes back to school. Acts like a teenager just patching things up with her dad. But she'll wear hidden mics, and she'll have round-the-clock protection. No. Don Esteban didn't even hesitate. I won't use my daughter as bait. Dad, Simena cut in, her voice clear and older than her years. I'm not bait. I'm part of this family, and we chose to do the right thing. If I can help stop other kids from losing their parents, then I have to. Sebastian looked at her with a mix of awe and terror. You're just like your mom, like Maria Elena, like Carmen. Brave, even when it's terrifying. Then, it's settled, Mendoza said, stacking his files. But I need you to understand your lives will never be the same. No matter how this ends, there's no going back to the world where you didn't know what you know now. They left the prosecutor's office in Don Esteban's Mercedes, followed at a distance by a federal escort. The car was silent, tension wrapped around them like a fog. Finally, Simena broke the quiet. Papa, do you think Mama, Maria Elena, would be proud of us? Esteban looked into the rearview mirror, catching Sebastian's tired but resolved eyes in the car behind them. Then he glanced at Simena, her face lit with the same determined fire he once saw in the woman he loved. I think, he said, voice thick with emotion, both Maria Elena and Carmen would be damn proud. Their lives meant something, and now so will ours. What none of them knew was that at that very moment, in a windowless office buried beneath one of Santa Fe's sleekest high-rises, a man in a tailored gray suit stared at an array of security screens. Every step of their departure from the Justice Ministry had been recorded. They've made their move, he muttered into a satellite phone held close to his ear. Initiate Phase 2. The voice on the other end replied with the icy precision of a hangman's verdict. Understood. Architects never abandon a blueprint. 6 months after that secret meeting in Coyoacán, Mexico City awoke to headlines blazing across every national front page. Esteban Aguilar, Sebastian Romero, and federal prosecutor Roberto Mendoza handcuffed and escorted from the Attorney General's office, while a tearful Simena watched from afar. La Red de los Arquitectos cae, Red L. Universal's headline, 47 arrests, a whistleblower, a system unraveling. It was a legal triumph and a devastating loss for the family that sacrificed everything to expose it. For half a year, Esteban and Sebastian had lived as ghosts in their own lives, embedded deep within a federal investigation, recording bribes, capturing backroom deals, risking everything to dismantle a criminal web that reached from dusty municipal desks to the polished corridors of power. Simena, now 16, wore the weight of adulthood like armor, earned too young, too fast. She sat curled in a chair inside the library of what used to be her family's estate, now seized by the government, clutching a letter from Esteban, penned from his cell in a maximum security prison. "My dearest Simena," it began in the bold handwriting she knew by heart. "By the time you read this, I will have confessed everything, including things I didn't do. I know you're angry. I didn't warn you. I didn't say this would also mean Sebastian and I would go down. But I need you to understand why." Marta walked into the library balancing a tray, 2 cups of café de olla and a small plate of pan dulce, just like she used to bring when the house was still full of life. The months had weathered her hair, now silver, the lines on her face deeper, but her loyalty to Simena had never wavered. "Mija, you need to eat. You've had nothing since yesterday." "I'm not hungry, Marta," Simena said quietly. I want to know why my dad confessed to crimes he never even committed." Marta sat beside her, something she only ever did in moments of family crisis. "Your father, he's complicated, but he's also the most honorable man I've ever known. Sometimes honor makes people do things that seem foolish." Simena kept reading. "For 6 months while we worked with Mendoza, the architects realized we were turning on them. They began wiping out witnesses, burning evidence, threatening anyone who stood up to them. We were running out of time." "But you had the recordings," Simena whispered, not expecting Marta to answer. "Didn't you?" "We did," the letter continued. "But recordings alone aren't enough in court. We needed live testimony to back them up. And one by one, our witnesses started disappearing. 11 people gone. 3 were officials ready to testify. We knew the only way to bring this network down was to put ourselves inside it." Simena felt the sting of injustice rise in her chest like seawater in her lungs. So he lied. He confessed to things he didn't do, so the real criminals would finally face justice. She read on. "Sebastian and I admitted to crimes we never committed, actions impossible to prove or disprove. But by doing so, we unlocked the confessions and evidence we needed to collapse the entire operation." The phone rang. Its familiar tone now felt like a punch in the chest. It wasn't Esteban checking in, or Sebastian planning a weekend outing. Marta answered, her face grim as she returned. "Licenciado Herrera, your father's attorney. He says sentencing is tomorrow." Simena closed her eyes. The last time she saw Esteban was at the hearing, when he stood before the judge and listed every sin, both real and invented. The powerful man who had raised her now looked small behind thick courtroom glass, but his eyes held a peace she hadn't seen in years. "Simena," the letter went on, "these months behind bars have been the most freeing of my life. For once I carry no lies, no secrets. I sleep, I breathe. I am finally me." Her tears, held back for weeks, fell without warning. The letter soaked them up like a sponge. Marta wrapped her arms around her with the softness only a grandmotherly heart can provide. Let it out, Nina. Cry until your heart has space again. Then we figure out what comes next. What comes next? Simena asked, broken. The house is gone. Dad's in prison, Sebastian too, and me? I don't even know who I am without them. Yes, you do, Marta replied, voice fierce with truth. You are Simena Aguilar Romero, daughter of 4 remarkable souls. Esteban, who raised you with pride. Sebastian, who protected you from the shadows. Maria Elena, who gave you life. And Carmen, who gave hers to keep you safe. You carry all of them inside you. Simena looked back at the letter. I've spoken with Marta about your future. The foundation Sebastian and I started will continue, under a different name, new leadership. All my assets are being sold, including this house. The proceeds will fund a trust. It's yours. Use it to study whatever you want, wherever you want, and do something that feeds your soul. What even is that? Simena whispered. What do I care about? Journalism, Marta answered without hesitation. Since you were little, you questioned everything. You needed to know the truth. It's in your blood. The Carmen and Maria Elena Foundation will need a leader one day. The letter continued. Someone young. Someone who knows the cost of corruption and the price of honesty. I gave them your name, for when you're 25 and your degree is done. Simena sat upright, a flicker igniting in her chest. A foundation named after the 2 women who had loved her most. They really thought of everything, Marta said. They wanted you to have more than a future. They wanted you to have purpose. The doorbell rang. Marta opened it to reveal a poised young woman in a smart gray suit, briefcase in hand. Miss Aguilar, I'm Patricia Sandoval, legal representative of the Carmen and Maria Elena Foundation. I'm here to officially offer you a full scholarship to the university of your choice, on the condition you study journalism or communications. Simena eyed her curiously. Did you know my father and Sebastian? I did, Patricia said warmly. In their final months, we worked closely. They made mistakes, but they turned those mistakes into something meaningful. Do you actually believe I can run a foundation? Simena asked, uncertain. Patricia smiled with quiet confidence. Miss Aguilar, I've seen older people break under far less. You've carried yourself with a strength and grace that most never find. Yes, I believe in you. That night, as Simena boxed up the last of her belongings, preparing to move into the apartment the foundation had secured for her and Marta, she found one final letter, hidden in Esteban's nightstand. It was short, but it held the words she had been aching to hear. Mi amor, it read. By the time you see this, I will have paid my dues. But know this, loving you was never part of that debt. It was the greatest gift of my life. You're free now, Simena. Free from my mistakes. Free from my guilt. Free to fly, hija mia. Fly high. And change the world. The next morning, Simena stood in court to hear the sentence. 15 years for Esteban, 12 for Sebastian with eligibility for early release due to cooperation. When the ruling ended, both men turned toward the gallery. Their faces were calm. No sadness. Only pride. 5 years later, Simena Aguilar Romero graduated from the National Autonomous University of Mexico with a thesis on corruption and transparency in urban planning. Her work, based on the architect's case files, became required reading in universities across Mexico. On graduation day, she received 2 letters, one from Esteban, who'd been released early for good behavior and now advised on government, ethics, Another from Sebastian, who had 2 more years left. Both said the same thing. We're proud of you. You changed everything. That night, Simena came home to find Marta making red pozole to celebrate. The woman who had become her second mother wrapped her in a hug, eyes shining. So, licenciada, what now? Simena glanced out the window at Mexico City's skyline glittering like scattered stars. I'm going to lead the Carmen and Maria Elena Foundation. I'll protect whistleblowers, shine light in dark corners, and make sure no other family ever pays the price we did for the truth. She paused, then added, and one day, I'll have my own family, one with no secrets, where love isn't hidden behind protection, where we face our mistakes and heal together. That night, at their modest dining table, Simena lifted a glass of horchata in a silent toast to 4 souls who'd taught her that true love sometimes demands the unthinkable, but truth, even when it hurts, will always set us free. Somewhere in the city, Esteban slept peacefully. In federal prison, Sebastian drafted the book that would soon shake a nation. And far above, Carmen and Maria Elena smiled, knowing their family had finally earned its freedom. The price had been steep, but the debt was paid in full.